In mid-July, a trade headline made a claim you almost never hear in this industry anymore. There is still a company that builds an outboard motor the way Ferrari builds an engine, starting from a raw block of metal, finishing with a machine ready for the water. Everything in between done under one roof. The address is Tirano, a small town in an alpine valley on the Italian-Swiss border where a single family has been building outboards since the 1950s, now into its third generation. Here's the strange part. You've almost certainly never heard the name Selva, but if you've been around boats, you've probably been near their metal without knowing it. Their components sit inside Yanmar sail drives, inside Torqeedo electrics, inside engines from brands with 100 times their fame. The industry quietly shops at a factory the public has never heard of. And at the top of their range sits the machine this video is about. A 300 horsepower V6 they call the White Whale. Plasma cast cylinders, drive-by-wire, a 5-year warranty, and available as a counter-rotating twin. A full-size flagship from a family firm, in a market where Mercury and Yamaha operate on budgets a family firm cannot see from the valley floor. Which raises the question that carries the next 12 minutes. In a business this consolidated and this brutal to small players, how is a family factory in a mountain valley still doing the one thing the rest of Europe gave up on? One thing before we start, and then I won't mention it again. Everything I know about what boat repairs should really cost, I put in a book, the Outboard Repair Defense Guide. If you want it, it's the first link below, and code BEI50 takes half off while it lasts. That's all. Now, Italy. The company that would become Europe's last complete outboard builder started with no boats at all. In 1945, the Sesto San Giovanni on the edge of Milan, Selva made components for the Lambretta, the Innocenti scooter that put post-war Italy on 2 wheels. Precision metal for somebody else's machine. That was the business, and it would have stayed the business if not for a race. Ezio Selva raced motorboats, and he raced them with an outboard the family had built themselves. At a competition held in Milan's seaplane base, he crossed paths with the sales representative of a large German company, a man who watched the family's engine run and asked whether they could build one for ordinary boaters. The first Selva outboard, a 3-horsepower unit, came out of that conversation. And in 1959, when founder Lorenzo Selva Sr. ran into trouble with his automotive customers, he made the decision that defined everything after. He moved production to Tirano, up in the Valtellina Valley, and made marine engines the heart of the company. Racing stayed in the bloodstream. Over the decades that followed, Selva engines took, by the company's count, 40 world titles, 65 European championships, and more than 150 national ones, across classes from 400 to 1,000 cubic centimeters, on circuits and offshore. For a company most boaters can't name, that's a trophy cabinet most famous brands would envy. And it explains something about the engineering culture. A family that raced its own products for decades learned exactly where engines break, because theirs broke in public, with the family name on the cowling. Then there's the part of the business that explains the obscurity. Selva's customer list reads like a tour of the industry's engine rooms. Yanmar, the Japanese diesel giant, buys Selva's work for its sail drive and stern drive units. Torqeedo, the German electric outboard pioneer, uses Selva components and transmission assemblies. Neander had Selva produce the transmission for its diesel outboard. Seven Marine, the American builder of the most powerful outboards of their era, sourced drive units from Tirano, and Selva supplies components to Yamaha. That name comes back. This is why you've never heard of them. Brands get famous by putting their name on transoms. Much of Selva's business went the other way. It's metal inside other people's cowlings, unlabeled. The trade press calls the Tirano operation the only complete production cycle for outboards in Europe. Die casting, CNC machining, heat treatments, anti-corrosion processes, a 4-stage coating line, assembly, testing, packing, all in one plant. Every other European maker gave up some part of that chain along the way. One family kept the whole craft under one roof, and the giants of the industry noticed even if the public didn't. When Yanmar or Torqeedo has needed marine-grade precision, a factory in an alpine valley is where they've gone. Which leaves the obvious question. A company this capable, building for everyone else? What does it build when it builds for itself? The answer is the White Whale, And the name is not modesty. This is a 300 horsepower V6, the largest engine in Selva's range, and the spec sheet reads like a machine from a company 50 times the size. 60-degree V6, 24 valves, double overhead cams with variable valve timing, displacing 4,169 cubic centimeters, drive-by-wire digital controls, a base weight of 260 kilograms, a weight that stands comparison with any big brand 300. A 5-year warranty on a recreational engine. And for buyers who want the full statement, a twin installation with counter-rotating propellers. The cylinders come out of a plasma fusion process the company runs in-house. A casting method chosen for strength and lightness, done in the same factory where the raw metal arrives. That last detail is the actual story, so it deserves the full explanation. Why would anyone build everything themselves? An outboard is hundreds of parts asked to survive the most corrosive working environment on Earth. And the standard industry answer is to assemble, buy castings here, electronics there, control the recipe and the brand. The obvious path for a small maker is the same one. Buy at scale, assemble in Italy, compete on price. For Selva, that path is a dead one because a family firm in a mountain valley cannot out-cheap Tokyo or Wisconsin. And a price war is the one fight a family firm is guaranteed to lose. So the company went the other way and kept every stage, its own die casting, its own machining, its own heat and anti-corrosion treatments, its own 4-stage coating line, its own testing. Control became the product, and the same machines earned their keep twice. Building Selva's engines during one shift and the precision components that Yanmar, Torqeedo, and the rest pay for during the next. The factory's real output goes beyond engines. Capability itself, and half the industry quietly shops for it. Then there's the question of who buys the engines themselves, and here Selva did something clever. Instead of chasing the world, it engineered for its own sea. The XSR version of a White Whale carries an engine computer remapped specifically for Mediterranean conditions. The company's stand representatives at Cannes explained the map is tuned for a sea with different characteristics from any other body of water. The result, they claim, is fuel savings of 3 to 5 liters per hour depending on cruising speed. And one trade account did the arithmetic. Over a month of charter work, the saving approaches what a rental operator pays a skipper. The XSR also swims with a distinctive propeller. Its blades cut with grooves rather than left conventional. And the customer list validates the niche. Selva is, by its own account, the official supplier of the Italian Coast Guard and several military units. The boats policing Italy's coastline run engines from the valley. So the flagship, the niche, and the factory are all real, which makes this the right moment to ask the question a sharp-eyed viewer may already be asking. Take that displacement figure, 4,169 cubic centimeters, 60-degree V6. Now look up the displacement of Yamaha's F300, the Japanese giant's own 300 horsepower V6. It's 4,169 cubic centimeters. To the cubic centimeter. 2 companies, one identical number. And that is not the kind of coincidence engineering produces by accident. So who actually designed the heart of the White Whale? Start with what the documents actually say, because this question deserves evidence rather than rumor. An industry profile of Selva states it plainly. The company's 4-stroke powerheads were developed with Yamaha. The same profile is equally plain about what that means and what it doesn't. Selva is an independent, family-owned company. Yamaha holds no stake in it. And the persistent internet rumor that Selva engines are secretly rebadged Yamahas gets a direct answer. No. The 2 companies are entangled in a subtler way, and the entanglement runs in both directions. Yamaha contributed to the 4-stroke design Selva builds. Selva, from its Tirano production line, supplies precision components that go to Yamaha. Hold both facts at once, and the displacement match stops being a scandal and becomes a signature. The White Whale's 4,169 cubic centimeters almost certainly share ancestry with the F300s, the way 2 houses share an architect. What Selva adds is everything after the drawing. The casting of the metal in its own foundry line, the machining, the anti-corrosion treatments, the 4-stage coating, the assembly, the testing, the XSR remap tuned for a specific sea, the grooved propeller. The trade press headline said built start to finish in Italy. And on the evidence, the building is exactly that. The thinking behind the architecture, that has a partner in Japan, and Selva has never claimed otherwise. Now ask the question that actually matters. Why would a family firm structure itself this way? The alternatives explain it. Designing a clean sheet 300 horsepower V6 alone costs what Cox Marine paid for its diesel. A decade and a fortune. And Cox had investors lined up behind it. A family in Tirano would be betting the company on one engine. Buying complete powerheads and dressing them in Italian cowlings makes you a decorator. One contract cancellation from death, with nothing underneath. The path Selva chose sits between those cliffs, and it's the one that keeps the factory alive. Share the design burden with a giant, keep the entire physical craft, the casting, the metallurgy, the coating chemistry, in your own hands, and make yourself useful enough to that same giant that the relationship holds. The components flowing from Tirano to Japan are not a side business. They're the insurance policy on the whole arrangement. There's a name for this in older industries. Italy's tradition was never mass production. The tradition in the workshop that survives beside the giants by holding a craft the giants find easier to buy than to replicate. The knife makers of Maniago beside Global Steel. The leather workshops beside the luxury conglomerates that eventually came shopping for them. Selva holds the marine version of that position. The last place in Europe where the complete outboard craft, raw metal to running engine, still exists as a living skill, practiced daily. Which is why the honest answer to who designed the heart of the white whale turns out to be less damaging than the question sounded. The heart was designed in partnership. The machine is built by a family in Tirano. Both of those are true at once, and neither cancels the other. And that division of labor raises the real question of this video, the one the title hangs on. If the design is shared and the volume is small, what exactly is the Italian in this outboard worth? The answer is bigger than one engine. So the answer to the question this video opened on. The family factory in the Mountain Valley is still doing what the rest of Europe gave up on because it turned survival itself into a design. A craft too complete to replace. A partnership that keeps the biggest player invested, and home sea knowledge nobody engineers from Japan or Wisconsin. Selva never beat the giants. It made itself the workshop the giants keep needing. And that arrangement has now held across 3 generations, with a 4th generation already quoted in the trade press. Here's the wider rule hiding in this story, and it goes far past one brand. Count the places on Earth where a complete outboard can come into existence, where the knowledge to take raw aluminum and turn it into a running marine engine lives under one roof. Japan has several. America has Wisconsin. And Europe, the continent that gave the world Ferrari and the marine diesel itself, has one factory. A factory in Tirano. Every other maker on the continent either disappeared or kept only a piece of the chain. That concentration is invisible in good times. It becomes visible the way all industrial capability does, the day you need it and discover it's gone. Shipbuilding taught Europe that lesson already. The shipyards Europe closed in the 80s stayed closed, because a craft dispersed is a craft ended. The outboard version of that knowledge currently has one address. Which is the honest way to resolve the promise in this title. The white whale will never outsell a Yamaha, and no fleet of Italian V6s is about to change what sits on the average transom. What changes boating is the existence proof. That the complete craft still survives outside the giants. That a family firm can hold it, and that the industry's biggest names, quietly through parts orders rather than press releases, keep voting that it matters. Somewhere, the complete idea has to physically live, and in Europe, it lives in a valley. What nobody can promise is the part that stays open. Family firms don't fail the way public companies do, with a filing and a deadline. They fade at handovers, one generation deciding the craft costs more than it returns. The 3rd generation runs Selva today. Whether the 4th keeps casting metal in Tirano is the whole question. Because the day that foundry cools, Europe won't just lose a brand. It will lose the last copy of the knowledge. And last copies, once gone, are gone in every language.